Thousands of visitors climbed Sicily's Mount Etna to witness the volcano's latest eruption up close.
Hamas said it will release 6 living hostages this week, plus the bodies of 4 more, in exchange for hundreds of Palestinians held by Israel. On Thursday, an Israeli official said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had agreed to allow long-requested mobile homes and construction equipment into Gaza. The two sides have yet to negotiate the second phase of the ceasefire, in which Hamas would release dozens more hostages in exchange for an Israeli withdrawal.
US and Russian officials have held talks in Saudi Arabia aimed at improving bilateral relations and negotiating an end to Moscow's war in Ukraine. The meeting took place at the Diriyah Palace in Riyadh, with delegations led by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Following their discussion, Rubio said the US will appoint a high-level team to conduct peace negotiations, adding that Europe would be a part of future talks.
A high-level team, including those who are experts on these topics, the technical side, to begin to engage with their side on parameters of what an end to this conflict would look like. And on that front, obviously, there's going to be engagement and consultation with Ukraine, with our partners in Europe and others. But ultimately, the Russian side will be indispensable to this effort.
It's the first in-person discussion between senior officials from both countries and is expected to pave the way for a meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, although no date has yet been set. Ukrainian officials were not present at the talks, and President Volodymyr Zelensky has said his country will not accept any outcome if Kyiv is not included. But Ukrainian defense official Yuri Sak remains optimistic Ukraine will eventually be invited to the negotiating table.
Nothing can happen without our consent. So rest assured, and I think this is the position that has been reaffirmed by the United States directly, that Ukraine will be party of these negotiations.
The talks in Riyadh come amid Trump's decision to reverse US policy on isolating Russia and follow his phone call with Putin last Wednesday, in which he declared that both had agreed to start negotiations immediately.
Europe's leaders remain divided on the prospect of sending peacekeeping troops to Ukraine in the event of a peace deal with Russia. Some of them met for emergency talks in Paris after seemingly being excluded from the negotiations between the US, Russia, and Ukraine. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he's ready to consider sending British troops.
And I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others if there is a lasting peace agreement. But there must be a US backstop, because a US security guarantee is the only way to effectively deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said it is premature to consider the idea without Kyiv's involvement.
Ich bin sogar ein wenig irritiert über diese Debatten, das will ich ganz offen sagen. Hier wird über die Köpfe der Ukraine hinweg über das Ergebnis von Friedensgesprächen, die nicht stattgefunden haben und bei denen die Ukraine nicht Ja gesagt hat und nicht am Tisch gesessen hat, über mögliche Varianten von Ergebnissen gesprochen. Das ist höchst unangemessen, um es ganz offen und ehrlich zu sagen. Wir wissen gar nicht, was das Ergebnis sein wird.
Other leaders, including Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, have not excluded the idea but not committed either. Shortly before the meeting, French President Emmanuel Macron spoke with US President Donald Trump, but Macron's office would not disclose the details about the discussion.
Pope Francis remains in hospital with a complex clinical picture as his respiratory infection proves challenging to treat, the Vatican confirmed. The 88-year-old pontiff is suffering from a polymicrobial respiratory tract infection requiring a second change in drug therapy since being admitted on Friday. Scientists say such infections involve multiple organisms, which complicates the treatment. Vatican spokesman described his condition as stationary, noting he has resumed some work activities and reading. But all this schedule has been disrupted, with several events cancelled, including this week's general audience. Outside Rome's Gemelli Hospital, where St. John Paul II was also treated, people pray for his recovery. A shooting incident occurred late on Monday evening near the Saint Gudjon metro station in Anderlecht, according to the Brussels Public Prosecutor's Office. At 10:25 p.m., police were alerted to a gunshot wound in the area of Place Saint-Gudon. Upon arrival, officers found a victim with a leg injury. She was conscious and her situation was not life-threatening. Preliminary investigations revealed that a single bullet was fired by a suspect riding an electric scooter who targeted the victim before fleeing the scene. The victim managed to seek refuge quickly, emergency services treated her injuries, and she has since been questioned as a part of the inquiry.
Il y a une psychose de toute façon, quoi. Où est la police? Parce qu'on parle de la police. Moi, je dis, il faut mettre l'armée dans les rues. Moi, je me dis, je suis pas... Voilà, j'ose le dire, il faut mettre l'armée dans les rues. Il faut faire un nettoyage, que ce soit au Peterbos, que ce soit à Clémenceau, etc. On n'est plus en sécurité à Anderlecht, quoi.
Several witnesses have been identified, and both ballistics experts and forensic police are now examining the scene. Despite these efforts, the motive behind the attack remains unclear. The suspect remains at large. This latest incident adds to concerns over rising violence in Brussels, prompting calls for increased security measures.
Homeless people in Belgium are being forced to draw lots for spaces in night shelters amid a critical shortage of available beds. At a refuge in Verviers, additional beds have been provided under the city's extreme cold plan, but they remain insufficient to accommodate the growing number of homeless on the streets.
Quand je vois encore certaines personnes qui se battent pour avoir des places, ben il n'y a pas assez de places, quoi. 7 places. 7 places. Et on est au moins une quinzaine par jour.
In December, 45 people were turned away from the shelter, and in January the figure rose to more than 60.
Nous, devoir fermer la porte et dire à quelqu'un « il fait -3, mais tiens, voilà un sac de couchage, tu peux aller dehors », c'est juste insupportable.
The homelessness crisis in the Belgian capital, Brussels, is well documented, but national statistics often overlook rough sleepers in smaller towns. According to the King Baudouin Foundation, roughly 1 in 6 people who sleep on the streets reside in municipalities with fewer than 50,000 inhabitants.
Thousands of visitors from all over the world climbed Sicily's Mount Etna to witness the volcano's latest eruption up close. Etna's first eruption of the year started on February 11th, but intensified on Monday, sending plumes of ash and lava into the air. Catania Airport diverted dozens of flights over the weekend due to the spread of clouds of ash. While hikers could only go up with a qualified mountain guide, restrictions put in place could not always stop people from getting as close to the volcano's mouth as possible. The Regional Civil Protection Service said it had deployed volunteer emergency units to provide assistance where necessary. During previous eruptions, nearby towns have been covered in black volcanic ash. However, this eruption has caused minimal disruption. Although Mount Etna erupts frequently, lava has not reached nearby towns in centuries.
Alors, pour acheter, il y a plusieurs types de personnes, hein. C'est pas seulement un type de personne, mais ça dépend la moto et les heures de la moto, forcément, elles vont être plus chères que d'autres. Il y a des motos où je mets 3000 heures de travail, et alors là, ça s'adresse à c'est considéré comme de l'art, donc comme un tableau. C'est une moto qui démarre, qui roule, mais qui est destinée vraiment à être dans un salon, ou sur une exposition, ou pour de la publicité, des choses comme ça. Ça dit une clientèle un peu différente, mais forcément qui a quand même des moyens.
They are all very special. We have Honda prototypes with frames made and conceived by Sammy Miller. We have a Bultaco with all the parts that were available in his catalog. I even I'm wearing a Sammy Miller suit designed for trials, which were very successful as well. And the Ariel is well known in the world of motorcycling because it won so many events, including the Scottish 6 Days, including British titles.
We are doing the necessary to speak with younger people, and you know that when scooters is decreasing a bit because the mobility, you don't need the same mobility, but you still need to have some fun actually on a two-wheeler. And we have some young people coming to authentic motorcycle because it's not boring, it's different.
L'idée, c'est, au travers de la marque, au-delà de vendre des produits, c'est d'inspirer, en fait, de donner de plus en plus de rôle modèles et de montrer des filles qui roulent, qui prennent la moto, qui s'engagent dans des aventures différentes, voilà, qui osent en fait. Et je pense qu'il y a vraiment un message autour de soyez audacieuses, essayez, et ça donne envie en fait. Quand tu vois des filles qui te ressemblent, qui sont capables de porter des vêtements qui ne sont pas trop moches ou trop connotés, ça donne envie.